In Movies and Money today, we're taking a look at some new films coming out this weekend, and one has the potential to be a blockbuster, I'm guessing. Joining me now is Erik Childress of the Chicago Film Critics Association, and let's take a look, Erik, at Star Trek Beyond.
Where you get that?
It's my Starfleet insignia.
What does it mean?
It means that I'm an officer of Starfleet, engineering division.
Engineering?
Aye, that's right. I fix things.
I know what is engineering.
Well, I would love to take a look at Star Trek Beyond, but Paramount has actually sent the message that they're kind of hiding this movie. So there are a lot of critics.
Bad sign.
It's not a very good sign, and it's very unfortunate because they screened the film for their junket press last week, but the embargo was still supposed to be this very week. So they were still sending the message that we're not pretty confident about this. But then people started saying, well, actually, we kind of like this movie. So they moved the embargo date, and now they've got a Rotten Tomato score of 91% that they can brag about on the commercials. Yet they still didn't move up any of the screenings for any other critics. So as far as I'm concerned, they're still hiding the movie, and they got the benefit of some positive reviews at the outset, but a lot of critics still haven't seen this movie.
As you know, it has been the summer of animation, and coming out this weekend, we have Ice Age Collision Course.
But I want to share everything with you. You're the wind beneath my fleas, the algae of my eye. Will you be?
I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm breaking up with you.
And this seems like a series that, in some respects, is particularly for critics, is one that has actually run its course in a way. But if you actually look at the worldwide box office of the last two movies in the series, they both grossed over $875 million worldwide. A majority of that is actually the international dollar. These movies have done between around 150 to 175 million here in the U.S. And I think this one will probably be the lowest grossing one that we'll see in the U.S., particularly with all the competition out there. Dory is still making money. Secret Life of Pets obviously has been doing well the last couple of weeks. So I think you'll see the money be a little muted on the U.S. side, but the international dollar, if that's still there, that's going to be a massive hit for Fox again.
And then finally, a horror film, Lights Out.
I abandoned her, but now she's going to stay, okay? As long as I keep my head clear and you keep the lights out.
And here's a film that Warner Brothers is not hiding from critics, and which is usually, horror films usually you want to sort of keep on the back end until the negative reviews, keep them as, on the side as much as you can. But the reviews for this movie have been very positive, and James Wan, who did Saw and The Conjuring, he produced this movie, and he produced a spin-off of The Conjuring a few years ago called Annabelle that wasn't very well received. So the positive reviews are actually a really nice surprise for this movie. I don't think you're going to see it do much battle with the other two movies this week, but you'll probably see it end up in the teens. And to go back to Star Trek Beyond that we were talking about, I think this movie is actually going to, good reviews or not, wherever the final Rotten Tomato score ends up, you're going to see this movie probably be the lowest grossing Star Trek movie of the new reboot, probably in the U.S., probably by somewhere around $100 million.
But will it take number one?
I think it will take number one this weekend. It'll probably be somewhere in the low to mid 50s. The drop-off will be huge over the next couple weeks, though, because you have Jason Bourne opening next week, and then you have Suicide Squad, which is expected to break some August records the first week.
It seems like there would just be such a thirst for a movie like Star Trek because we have seen The Secret Life of Pets and Finding Dory. There's been so much geared towards children that here comes a big film that's geared towards adults.
And yet a lot of the sort of the big budget sequels and things like that, this is another very expensive movie, about $185 million budget, we've seen people just haven't shown up to. And I think there's not a lot of great, there's a little bit of ill will considering that the last Star Trek movie, Star Trek Into Darkness, was not as well received by fans. So I think this movie is, I've heard, is sort of steering back to the old Star Trek, sort of the science and the brainy stuff of Star Trek, even though the advertisements suggest that it's a lot of action and stuff like that. So it'll open well, but I think over the next couple of weeks you're going to see it fall. What's
your reaction to the results coming from Ghostbusters with the ladies?
Well, it was nice to see that it made the money that was expected to make last weekend. I thought it was actually going to get maybe a little bit of an upswing when word of mouth kicked in, but this is a very crucial weekend for this movie. Sony has already suggested that there is definitely going to be a sequel, which warms my heart for certain. But we're going to see, you have Star Trek and Ice Age and Lights Out. These, comedy, you have a little horror, you have a little animation for the families, and you have an action movie. These are all sort of the demographics demographics that Ghostbusters hits. So I think you might see it take a decline that is not going to appease Sony very much, and it'll be disappointing. But I think you'll probably end up seeing Ghostbusters somewhere around 125 million when all is said and done.
And we have to take a pause and take a mention of Garry Marshall, who passed away this week, and what a man he was.
What a career!
What a career!
A pioneer.
And he's a great legacy.
Absolutely. I mean, a pioneer in television, and Happy Days, and Mork and Mindy, and Laverne and Shirley. These are things that a lot of different generations grew up with, whether it be in first run or on reruns and on afternoon television, like I did. And then his film career, a massive career, not just as a director but also an actor. His scenes in Lost in America with Albert Brooks is one of the great scenes in comedy history. Soap Dish, he's really funny in, and then obviously Pretty Woman was a massive success back in 1990. Essentially, put Julia Roberts into the next stratosphere. And I'm a fan of sort of his mid to late 80s movies like The Flamingo Kid and Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, and particularly Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason, which I think is my favorite of his. And then he had, his movies over the last few years, decade or so, have not exactly garnered the kind of critical acclaim, but he's had successes like Runaway Bride, which reunited Gere and Roberts, and the Princess Diaries films, and even Valentine's Day. He's been doing these holiday-themed comedies, and that did very well. So Garry Marshall will definitely be missed.
He touched a lot of us. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Eric.
Thank you.
Business First AM continues right after this.